especially the 4 states and the Union Territory which went to the polls. After 8 phases of polling, the results will be announced today. In today's Political Bazaar, we'll be discussing early trends, the projections, and of course, the results. For today's discussion, we have political commentator Amitabh Tiwari and journalist Anand Kochukudy. For those of you familiar with the political section of Moneycontrol's opinion, my two guests need no introduction. Welcome Amitabh Tiwari and Anand Kochukudy to Political Bazaar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Amitabh, let me go first to you. Your thoughts on the exit poll predictions as a whole, as you know, the keeping all the four states and the Union Territory in. What are your thoughts?
See, exit polls are generally a better barometer of electoral results than opinion polls. However, COVID has complicated matters for them as well. They have faced difficulties in terms of data sampling and collection. If you talk about projections, West Bengal was always a close election, and one of the polling agencies which has a better track record, which is Axis, has essentially put up its hand and said that we don't know who's winning.
Okay.
In Assam, if you go by poll of polls, NDA has an edge. In Kerala as well, LDF is expected to break the trend and come back to par. Of course, there are differences in terms of seat projections. While some saying it could still be close, some polls are projecting an outright victory for LDF. And in Tamil Nadu, we are basically seeing a reversal to the mean, wherein the incumbent is losing power, but we are also seeing that the era of the landslide victories, it seems to be back in Tamil Nadu as per the exit polls.
Okay. Anand, could you give me your feel about the exit polls? We've talked about it quite a bit, but could you tell me your feel about it?
I believe that the exit polls could go wrong to some extent, to some degree this time. Just as Amitabh said, because of COVID, the data collection, I don't know how much accurate or how much of data collection was possible. And because of that, I think the exit polls could go wrong. I'm basing it on my state of Kerala itself, because I see that today's Chanakya and Axis My India has given 120 or 100 odd plus 100 to 120 seats to the LDF, which would seem hugely surprising to me, while some other polls, including the latest one by Manorama, has given a very close margin to the LDF. So it can't vary so much. While the broad points, like as Amitabh said, that the NDA seems to have an edge in Assam, the LDF seems to have an edge in Kerala, and the Mamata government, TMC in West Bengal.
I'll just come to that. Just before that, I'll just cut across. Amitabh, by what time are early trends expected, especially given COVID protocols now in place? Can we expect, the leads to come in early, or will they be delayed throughout the day? How do you think it's going to look?
See, for the southern states, I think the leads could come in early, but Assam, because of course it's a northeastern state, and West Bengal, because it's a very highly competitive pissed election with a lot of violence, I don't see the final results coming in before evening. It could just go down to the wire, and the results could also be delayed, like Bihar and MP.
But why do you think that the southern states would have it relatively quicker than, say, West Bengal or Assam? Because I'm guessing geography does not have to do.
Just based on history, I think there the countings are much faster.
Do you expect recounts, requests for recounts, and also any other development in West Bengal and Assam?
Yeah, requests for recounts, obstruction in counting, challenging the numbers after every round. asking the DM or the election commissioner or the election officer there to give a signed copy after each round. So
Hmm.
West Bengal will take some time, but the southern states should be there by around 11, 12.
And Anand, you had an interesting take on how the leads could go in Kerala.
Yeah, and there are postal votes in Kerala this time, which was extended not just to the service voters, but also to people aged 80 and above. So there are 5,40,000 postal ballots this time, which would
Hmm.
correspond to 4 to 5,000 votes in every constituency. So there have been separate, there are separate tables assigned to these postal ballots in some 600 centers, and
Okay.
it is assumed that apart from the regular counting, this would also go on for at least 6 hours, making the results get delayed by probably by a couple more hours than the usual election counting. I mean, ever since we have the EVMs, so it could be further delayed, and the election commission has supposedly given an instruction that all the postal ballots be counted before the last round of EVM counting, so that so that there is some sort of stability. And that means, which is very interesting, which means that in the postal ballot counting, the LDF is supposed to have the edge in the postal ballot. So that means a lot of results which will show the UDF in the lead initially could go to the LDF in towards the end. So that has to be there. That has to be taken into
So,
account.
so let's stay with Kerala. I'll just continue with you on that question on Kerala. Projections say that the LDF, the CPIM-led front, is going to break almost 4-decade-old trend. How do you see this change? From the overall picture in Kerala.
I mean, if it does change, then it is a big change. It is a massive, huge change. It would mean that the government, which lasted 5 years, came back, and this would be the first time since 1977, the emergency era government which came back in Kerala, bucking the national trend. It would be something of that kind in Kerala,
Mm.
because there have been other governments which came back, but then these were small, like governments that lasted a year or half a year, 6 months. So that doesn't really count, do they? So uh, and the Pinarayi Vijayan government has, ever since they came to power in 2016, it was the single point agenda of the government to somehow get a second term. And I remember very early in 2016, Pinarayi Vijayan had made a statement that he was coming to power for 10 years and not 5 years. So that was the plan right away. And the government has done a lot of work, which goes to show their confidence.
Do
And
you see? Do you see the emergence of the BJP, the NDA in Kerala, one of the reasons for this break of trend?
if it does happen, then that will be one of the reasons, because the anti-incumbency votes, the index of opposition unity, is definitely a factor. So the NDA got 15, 16 percentage votes last time in 2016, which was
Uh,
again much higher than what they got in 2011. And from 16, if they can raise it to 20 this time, so that means, and suppose the UDF gets somewhere around 40%. So it will be 60% votes going to the opposition, but then getting divided between the UDF and the BJP, and that would be the single most biggest reason for the LDF to retain power in that eventuality. If the BJP can raise their vote share from 16 to suppose 18 or 20, that will
mhm.
be a huge factor. In
Okay. Let's move from there to Assam. Amitabh, my question to you is: exit polls suggest that the BJP will regain power. Now, does this mean that the BJP's innings in the northeast is going to be a long one? Because last time when they won, everyone said it was an anti-incumbency vote. So this time you cannot say that. So does it mean BJP is consolidating its position in Assam and the rest of the northeast, or is there more to read in it?
Yes, see, increasingly voters are voting on the basis of the performance of the state governments.
Hmm.
And if BJP wins Assam, which is going to be a close and a tough contest, It shows that the BJP state government as well as the central government have worked in tune, the double engine ki sarkar, as they say, and
Hmm.
work for the development of the state. It will also strengthen the position of BJP in the Northeast. Currently, all the Northeastern states are ruled or do have a NDA government,
Hmm.
and it will also show that the 2016 victory was just not a fluke, because Assam is a very tough state for BJP to win. There is a 35-40% minority population. There are many ethnic tribes. There is a question of identity. It was the state which was worst hit by the anti-CAA protest.
Hmm.
Arithmetically, the alliance formed by uh, Congress is very
Hmm.
strong. So if BJP is able to win that state, then it will also uh, show that it has been able to manage the
Hmm.
contradictions in its social alliance, which is very
So,
important in any election.
Also just shed a bit of light. So, what does this mean? How does this reflect on the the massive anti-CA protest that was seen in the state, and of course the opposition to the NRC and what happened with the NRC? So, when if you say that the BJP is coming back to power, how do you read both of these developments, both of
See,
these
actually,
events?
BJP smartly did not put the implementation of CAA in its manifesto in Assam, while it did put
Hmm.
up in West Bengal. So it
Hmm.
did try to divert the attention from the CAA protests to a positive narrative, which was
Hmm.
of development, and the fact that the Congress allied with AIUDF also
Hmm.
provided it with an opportunity to target Congress alliance as a anti Assamese alliance, an
Okay.
alliance which was giving precedence to illegal migrants to come and establish their base in Assam. So, and one of the other factors which was more important is that since BJP has come to power and after the CAA, it has been
Hmm.
able to divide the migrants into Hindu migrants and Muslim migrants. Earlier, the Assamese people looked at it as one block, but now BJP has been able to convince people that the Bengali Hindus are their brothers. They have been uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
facing difficulties in Bangladesh, and they coming back is actually good for the state's population dynamics to control the surge in the population of the Muslim community there.
All right. Let's go to Tamil Nadu. Anand, my question to you is, um, the regional parties are the ones who are calling the shots there, though the national parties are also, following them in alliance. Given the projections, what does this mean to both the national parties, the BJP, which is a part of the AIDMK alliance, and the Congress, which is a part of the DMK alliance? What message is there for the national parties in Tamil Nadu?
In 2016, if you remember, the DMK had a near strike rate. I mean, the DMK strike rate wasn't very different from that of the ADMK, but it still lost. And the loss was not the margin was not that small. It was partly because the Congress contested in 40 seats and
Hmm.
won
Yeah.
just 9 seats out of that, less than 25% strike rate. So that actually pulled down the DMK government. I mean, the DMK from forming a government. And in 2016, it was a bucking of trend. Like if it happens in Kerala this time, in 2016, it broke a pattern in Tamil Nadu where the AIADMK was able to retain power after 5 years. So the national parties had big stakes last time, but I don't know if it does have that big stakes this time, because it's actually riding on the regional party in Tamil Nadu. The BJP is contesting in 23 seats, 20 seats in the ADMK alliance, and the Congress this time in 25 seats in the DMK alliance. So the DMK is tipped to come back to get a shot at power this time. So the Congress is very much a tail ender in that alliance. They are just part of that alliance, but a very small minor partner this time, without too much riding on the Congress. So yes, it helps the BJP or the Congress to be in power in a state, even if even if its status is that of a minor partner. But I don't know how much it would affect the fortunes of the BJP or the Congress in the national level. If it comes to power in Tamil Nadu, in a state like Tamil Nadu, with the regional parties still very much calling the shots.
All right. Okay. We'll have to wind up now because the early trends have coming in, and looking at the early trends, it looks most likely it's mirroring much of what the exit polls have actually predicted. But we'll have to wait. These are very early trends. Things can change, in a matter of a couple of hours. But I would like to thank Amitabh Tiwari and Anand Kochukudy for coming on Political Bazaar. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more political news, stay tuned to moneycontrol.com.